Good morning. My name is Nick Turner, and I am a member of the WLAN Pi team. Let's do a quick recap of the WLAN Pi project. So the WLAN Pi project is made up of a group of contributors, of which I am one. We've got Jerry, Josh, Adrian, Ben Toner, and Jerry. These are the key guys who join every week to have a chat about where the WLAN Pi project is at and where we would like it to go next, what's broken, can we fix it, that kind of thing. We also have new contributors. Brian Ward and Matt Lee have also contributed recently, and we also have our honorable contributors. There's a little marker here for you and your skill, so if this project is something you're interested in contributing towards, please reach out, and maybe we can put your name and picture on this slide. What are the WLAN Pis? There are currently two models of WLAN Pi. On the left, we have the WLAN Pi M4. This is a CM4 stuck onto a carrier board, wrapped upside in a 3D printed case. And this unit takes PoE. It has a Wi-Fi module inside it, which is M.2. And the units that we handed out at the deep dive were Wi-Fi 6E, but this board can take the Wi-Fi 7 modules asterisk with a little bit of manipulation. The WLAN Pi R4, this is the one that's based on a plain Raspberry Pi 4. This unit, you just wrap inside an aluminum case, stick a 3D printed fascia on the top of it, and then you have a WLAN Pi R4. This unit takes a USB Wi-Fi dongle. We were standardizing on the ComFast 951, but it looks as though these units are not going to be available moving forwards. And so we are now supplying, these units we're now recommending to use the 953 with. It's the same chip inside it. It's just got dangly antennas on the outside. So it's a bit wider. There are pros and cons of each of these. The key ones, I think, being the M4 takes PoE, but the R4 has OTG. So you can stick a USB cable into your laptop and do power and Ethernet over USB into the USB-C port on the WLAN Pi R4. The project itself started in 2016. It's community-driven. The image is a fork of Raspberry Pi OS that we have preloaded with drivers and tools that we think will be useful to Wi-Fi professionals out of the box. The idea being, I wish I had a box that did X. Aha, I can use this. And I have personal experience of this. I recently visited a site where we were assuming we would use a speed test server running on the customer's equipment, but once we reached site, we discovered that actually we were getting asymmetrical results. So 900 megabits per second in one direction, 400 in the other. I didn't come here to troubleshoot your wired network. What I need is something running Libra speed. And the WLAN Pi fitted that bill without me having to do any configuration. How can you find out more about the WLAN Pi project? I recommend coming to our website, wlanpi.com. Any questions? No, that's a joke. There are no questions. However, if you're interested in finding out how to use your WLAN Pi, I recommend going over to go.wlanpi.com. And this is a simple redirect to our Git book. Each year for WLPC, we develop a WLAN Pi deep dive, and we create labs, step-by-step guides on how to perform various functions that we think Wi-Fi professionals would want to do. And we document them for two reasons. One, because it makes the deep dive a better experience, but also number two, it means that next time you want to do that thing, you can go back to refer to those step-by-step instructions, because I can't remember half of the steps that are required to perform some of these tasks. After WLPC each year, well, most years, that material slowly graduates its way over into the cookbooks. So right now, there are two volumes of the cookbook. Volume 1, which is the material that we created for the WLAN Pi Pro, and Volume 2, which is the material focused on the WLAN Pi M4. And in the following, in the next few months, the material that we used in the deep dives this year will make their way over into the cookbooks. Let's talk about WLAN Pi OS 3.2. Who is it for? This is for everybody with a Raspberry Pi-based WLAN Pi. So that's the M4, the R4, and the Pro. It's one image. So you can head over to wlampi.com/downloads. On that page, there is a link to our GitHub. You scroll down on that page, down to the assets on GitHub, and you should be able to download our latest image. The little asterisk here, if you have a Neo 2, though this image does not run on the WLAN Pi Neo 2, there is an updated image for the Neo 2, and that now supports the Wi-Fi 6E module 951 and 953 from Comfast. You're not meant to be able to read all of the text on this slide. I just wanted to pull out a couple of the key things from the release notes of WLAN Pi OS 3.2. Number one, we upgraded the Linux kernel to 6.7.1. This is how we have enabled the BE200 Wi-Fi 7 modules. And a quick story about WLPC Prague last year. We set up all of our units, and we had no hardware problems. Once we got into class, we handed the units out, and one of the labs, if you took the deep dive this year, then you know this, but one of our labs involves Kismet. And we started launching Kismet, and we had sporadic unit crashes across the board. And this is part of the project, right? We run into these things. So this presented itself as a hardware problem. Some units would constantly crash when you launched Kismet. Other units were completely fine. They're running the identical code. They have the identical hardware setups. So we burned a lot of cycles troubleshooting this. It turns out that it was a software issue, and this was resolved by upgrading the Linux kernel upgrading the Linux kernel. We've gone up to 6.7.1 because of the BE200s, but now I'm happy to tell you that if you have experienced the Kismet crash, that should be resolved if you flash your image with the latest version of WLAN Pi OS. Let me show you that one really quickly. So if we go to wlampi.com, head over to the downloads page, then WLAN Pi OS, this one here. This will take you to GitHub. Here is the changelog. I recommend reading these. This will tell you about what we've changed, what the fixes are, and known issues. So if we have discovered something that we think people should be aware of, that will be on this page. And then at the bottom of this page, we have the assets, and you'll want to look for the thing that's about 1 gigabyte, download that, and then flash that to your SD card. I recommend using Balena Etcher, but you could use any tool you wish to flash that SD card. Wi-Fi 7 hardware support. The carrier board that we use for the WLAN Pi M4 has an M.2 slot, which is A-keyed. The A and the E key are just slots physically cut into the Wi-Fi module. The MediaTek adapter that we've been using so far was dual-keyed, so it didn't matter. But unfortunately, right now, the M4 that many of you have won't take the BE200 without manipulation. Our friends at Ossium created an A to E adapter board. This is just a physical board that basically allows us to put the BE200 into a WLAN Pi M4 without needing to get out the craft knife. Let me show you what this process looks like. In order to perform this change, now I will eventually publish a step-by-step instruction guide, but here is the rough version. You take your WLAN Pi M4 and you take off the joystick cap. Just pop that off with your fingernails because it's probably glued on. More about glue in a minute. Then we're going to take out the screws. So the M4 is held together by 8 screws on the sides of the unit. There are screws on the back, but ignore them. They're nothing to do with keeping the unit held together. So we're going to take out the screws. Let's turn up that. So we'll take out those screws, all right? They've gone now, and then we'll take out the other ones from the other side. Okay. Now, it's a 3D printed case. There is, difference in tolerances with these, but if you squeeze the case and wiggle it a little bit, you should be able to put some pressure onto onto the Ethernet port and start to slide the board out. You can just see a little gap here. just slide the whole board out of the 3D printed orange extrusion piece. Once we've got the board out, so this is like the sled, the whole unit comes out. We can spin him around, and then let's remove the end cap. So pop the end cap off. Here you can see the screw, the nuts that the screws on the sides were going into and holding that piece together. Then we'll take off the vanity plate. That's the piece with the buttons. And here we can see the wave share screen and buttons module and a 3D printed sled and vertical plane riser for the antennas. With a little bit of wiggling, we can take them off. We'll also probably want to pop the antennas off the Wi-Fi module. Once we've taken those off, we can then remove the module that you currently have. So that's either a MediaTek 9571 or 7922. Sorry, 7921 or 7922. Once they've come out, we can introduce the BE200 and the A to E adapter. And you can see here, it's these little notches here that we're talking about with the A and E keys. We put the adapter plate into the M.2 slot, screw that one down. I have used a pan head screw on this one. It doesn't really matter what you use for this bit, but ideally we want to use a washer head screw on the module. Just make sure that the flange at the top of that screw is wide. I've had a couple of screws that slipped into the notch here, and even though that holds the board in place, it's not a good fit. So keep an eye out for that. We pop the BE200 board into the A to E adapter, and then we can start thinking about reassembly. Before we can complete that reassembly, I need to talk about this leg. So this leg, I think it's mostly there for aesthetic reasons, and this worked great when there wasn't an adapter key, like a key adapter in there. But we need to get rid of that piece. So I take a pair of scissors, snip. Don't chop your antenna cable. I almost snipped a couple of antenna cables during the past couple of days, so make sure they're out of the way. But because of the way this is 3D printed, once you kind of cut into that grain, it'll probably snap off. Take that piece, put it in the trash. All right, then we can put the sled back on and pop the antenna leads back into there, and we can start thinking about reassembling the units. That will slide back in, pop the end cap on, put the screws back in, and then talk about the joysticks. Now, the first iteration of this joystick cap was the 3D printed nub that just sat on top of the joystick peg. I was hoping that could be a friction fit, but we quickly found that will fall off or be removed if it's bouncing around inside your bag. My solution to this was a small dab of super glue. Thing is, I left them to dry, and I left them to dry in this orientation. And then we went to do the practice deep dive session in London, and two people had no problems. Fernay and Peter Mackenzie had no problem using their WLAN Pi M4s. Unfortunately, Keith's unit, you couldn't press enter. You couldn't click enter. So it's like, that's fine, we'll swap it out. Here's another one. It must be could be the unit. And this one's the problem as well. But yet, Fernay's, with the thumb, and Fernay and Peter's units are still fine, but this one here with Keith's is not working, so swap out another one. So at this point, we're thinking like, okay, Keith, come on. What's going on? It's not. Anyway, so the irony here was that of, let's say, 20 units, 2 of them didn't have a bound joystick, and the other 18 were all glued. So the glue had seeped down into the joystick mechanism, and you now couldn't press enter. We only discovered this when we got home, and Fernay and I ripped a unit apart. I was adamant that it wasn't the glue causing this problem until Fernay ripped the unit apart, and we're like, well, what's this then? But we can see a very small sheen of glue inside the joystick mechanism. So you can use glue to keep the joystick cap in place, but what you've got to do is use a very small dot of glue, turn the unit upside down, and let it dry downwards so that the glue can't travel into the joystick mechanism. I am experimenting with a new joystick cap. I'm not going to present it right now, but on future models, I think that we will have an improved joystick mechanism that doesn't require glue. Software that's upcoming and the web UI features. We are continuing to develop the WLAN Pi software and user experience. One of the features that we are almost ready to commit is the initiation of SSID association from the web UI. This would be much more, this would now be a procedure that we're far more familiar with our regular consumer devices. So to be able to scan the available Wi-Fi networks around us with the WLAN Pi, and this could be done through the web interface. Also, what comes along with this is a desire to build out the APIs. So that would be the ability to request data from the WLAN Pi and initiate actions such as join an SSID by making API calls to the WLAN Pi. Upcoming hardware features. I mentioned earlier the R4 having OTG, but the M4 lacking. I am excited to tell you that we are hoping to bring a model in the future of the WLAN Pi M4. This will probably be the WLAN Pi M4 Plus, and that'll be the unit that has OTG. So we currently have a few prototypes that bring that functionality. It's not ready yet, but that's where we think the hardware is going with regards to the M4. If you would like to get in touch with us, I recommend reaching out on Slack. That's not what this slide says, but I would recommend reaching out on Slack. In the Wi-Fi Pros Slack, we have a channel, WLAN Pi. That's the best place to start. We do have a Slack instance ourselves. This is mostly for people contributing to the project. Over on the website, wlanpi.com, you can join our mailing list. I don't think you need to be worried about getting spam from us. We've sent out one mail blast to date. We'll try and address that. We'll actually try and bring it up a little bit and maybe bring the software, when we release new versions of WLAN Pi OS, do an email blast on that one just to let people know. Although it's a fairly regular cadence of if you just want to upgrade twice a year, then around WLPC is when the new versions usually drop. How do you get hold of a WLAN Pi? If you have a Raspberry Pi 4, let me emphasize, if you have a Raspberry Pi in your drawer doing nothing right now, then you already have a WLAN Pi. Download our image, stick that into your Raspberry Pi 4, and now you have a headless WLAN Pi. If you want to build the rest of the bits, over on the website, dig through the user guide. You can find the equipment list and where to get all of the different components to build a WLAN Pi R4. In the WLPC store, we do have the BE200 upgrade kits for the M4. There are also kits for there are R4 complete kits. So that's all the parts you need to build an R4, and there are also the M4s that are built and complete. So any questions about the availability of WLAN Pi hardware, head out to the store or call me a little bit later today. And that's it today. Thank you very much for your time.